So today you're in a hotel in Boston. Yesterday I was in a hotel in Boston. Why are we never in Boston
And
together?
I was in Washington D.C., blocks away from our guest office, and I didn't stop in because I thought he was somewhere in the world.
Yeah,
And I will just say it is our favorite guest of the show. Sorry, everybody.
excellent. Well, let's find out who it is.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, welcome to the one and only No Vacancy Live. Of course, that's Anthony Melchiori back with us today. I'm still Glenn Hausman. Thank you all for joining us. So excited to see you today, Anthony. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, at 12 o'clock yesterday, I was somewhere on 95 South
Yep.
in a snowstorm.
Yeah, I drove home in that last night, but it just turned to treacherous rain. So that was a whole lot of fun. But I'll tell you, we're just kind of kidding on that. But one thing that is fun is we're going to be going. I'm going to be going out to the AHLA conference in a couple of weeks, and we're going to get the scoop on what's going to be going on for 2024. So today we're going to get a little preview of stuff. We're going to be looking at legislative issues that are going here in our incredible business. And then tomorrow, a little show note. We're going to have Jan Freitag on from CoStar STR to give us what he sees in the numbers. But Anthony, as much as I love talking to you and I want to catch up, we got such a great guest today.
Before we invite our guest on,
Yep.
I'm going to say this without him being on because I
Uh-oh.
want to embarrass him and him say stop it. There is no greater leader for our industry than the gentleman that's about to come on. He has done more in the last several years for our company, our industry, than anyone has done probably in the last 20 years. And anybody that wants to take me to task on that, I think there's a report card that I will win that argument.
All right. And as our good improv skills rules tell us, yes, and I agree with you. And it's amazing to see how much has been done with the American Hotel and Lodging Association. They're growing, they're expanding, they're doing a lot more to help our community. Let's welcome to the show President and CEO Chip Rogers. So great to see you, Chip.
Gentlemen, good to see you. Anthony, I'll pay you later. You're a great guy. He's the best voice. I mean, Glenn, no disrespect to you, but Anthony is the loudest cheerleader. So it goes Anthony, Glenn, 1 and 1A. But you guys just do an incredible job. And I, too, am excited to get out to Los Angeles because the weather here sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure does. But hey, that's one of the risks you take living in Washington, D.C., making all things happen for us. I think what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at all the legislative issues that I saw. So the first one that's really important that's been pressing and kind of bothering a lot of folks in our industry is what has been going on with New Jersey. It looks like we have a serious update on that particular issue, Chip.
Yeah, the New Jersey legislature adjourned without passing any legislation in and around hotel franchising. And so that's good because the underlying issue at hand was a piece of legislation that targeted the hotel industry. Now, first and foremost, we stand against legislation that targets the hotel industry in a negative way, and that's exactly what this bill did. And we would hope that everyone in the industry, every association, every hotelier, whether you're an owner, you're a brand, you're a management company, would stand against legislation targeting the industry, because once you get the government involved in your business, your daily operations, it's not like they're going to leave. I mean, no one ever said, you know what, I got a problem. I should get the government involved in my business, and that would really help solve my problem. It just doesn't work. And so the underlying principle of targeting our industry was a bad idea. And then when you looked at the specifics, they weren't really well thought out. There's a lot of language in that legislation that would have done some hyper damaging things. For example, there was I don't want to, there's probably 10 things we could go into, but one example is part of the legislation said you have a protected area around a hotel. Everybody understands that. If I own a Holiday Inn Express, they shouldn't be allowed to build another one within my protected area. That's common sense. That's the standard. That's the way it's always been. What this bill would have done was take that expanded protection area and apply it to all hotels in that entire brand. So let's say you had, let's say you did have that Holiday Inn Express. It would prevent you from building an Intercontinental in that same protected area, which makes no sense whatsoever because the guests for the Intercontinental and the guests for Holiday Inn Express are quite different. So that's just one example of what it doesn't.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it actually hurts you because that hotel will help your hotel. Because
Absolutely.
it's going to draw more people into that industry for meetings and things like that. So it actually hurts you, and you have to allow companies to negotiate themselves. You don't want the government to be the referee. We have enough problems with referees. You don't want the government to come in and be your referee. So you listen. Companies got to get there on their own, and sometimes there's a lot of stress and a lot of arguments and a lot of disagreement. But at the end of the day, there's negotiation that usually works out for both parties.
Yeah, and that's what you do. You settle this at the table. I mean, ask the Detroit Lions what referees are like, right? So you don't. And it's just, again, like I said from the beginning, no one ever said, hey, I want to solve my business problem. Let me get the government involved. That's just not a good idea, because once they get in, they're not getting out. And then when it targets the hotel industry, it's even worse. And so, we're going to continue to make sure we're protecting the franchise model for owners, for brands, for management companies. I remind people again and again and again, my chair of AHLA for the last 2 years has been hotel owners, and they steadfastly stood against this legislation because they knew ultimately it wasn't good for hotel owners. And so we'll continue to work with the author of the bill. He's now moved over from the House to the Senate in New Jersey, and hopefully find some sort of conclusion to where this can be settled outside the bounds of legislation.
Now, one area also looks like you've had some success is the craziness that was going on in LA with forcing hotels to put homeless in there, who many of which may be mentally ill and not the image that we'd like to see of like a single mom trying to get housing.
Well, look, Glenn and Anthony, the reality is homeless is a serious problem in almost every community across this country. What was proposed in Los Angeles was not a serious answer. In fact, it was a dangerous suggestion because it not only put guests at danger, it put hotel employees at danger. And that's where I just kind of shook my head. I mean, I sometimes find that the union doesn't really care about the guests, union leadership, I should say, not the union members themselves. Right. They clearly do, but the union leadership doesn't care. They don't really care about the business, but they ought to at least care about their own union members and the safety of those members. And this ridiculous plan would have put them in danger. And so, we did a lot of work on this, pointing out how dangerous it was to hotel employees, asking that question again and again. Why would the union put their own members at physical danger? And then we went out and asked consumers and said, look, would you come to Los Angeles if this were the law? And overwhelmingly, they said, no, we won't visit Los Angeles. So I think it finally dawned on the leaders there in Los Angeles that this was not going to work. It was a very bad idea, and it would destroy the hotel industry.
Yeah, I'm also not a big fan of cities abdicating their responsibility to take care of their populations, right? I mean, if they can't create affordable housing, if they can't provide strong mental health professionals to aid individuals, and I walk around downtown LA, I see it in New York, some very mentally ill people. If the jurisdictions can't handle that, it's not up to the responsibility of private business to get involved.
And listen, we want everyone to be helped because, as I say, they go out, the grace of God go I, right? Yeah. Any one of us could be in any situation at any time. So no one's above any of that. However, as you said, Chip, it puts everybody in danger. And I said, you would shut down LA. You would literally shut it down. There would not be one group, one convention, one business. Because I know I'm not staying in the hotel like that. Because not only it's putting the employees and the customers, it's putting them at risk. Because you don't know how somebody's going to react to something that maybe seem minor. They don't work. Maybe they don't live in urban environments, so they're not used to maybe dealing with people that they see like that. Yeah. So it's dangerous for everyone. And just in a few seconds, can you, for people that don't understand what we're talking about, what was the plan?
Yeah, it was one of the most cockamamie ideas you could ever hear of. So if it would have passed, this was going to be a ballot measure, and the union thankfully pulled it off the ballot. But if it would have passed, it would require every hotelier in the city of Los Angeles at 2 p.m. every day to call City Hall. Now, we can all just think about just that first step alone seems a little ridiculous, right? How often are you able to call City Hall and get through? But at 2 o'clock, you'd have to do that, and you would have to report how many rooms you have available and what your rate is at that time. Of course, not recognizing that rates can change throughout the day.
Right.
Once the city gathered all that information from all the hoteliers in Los Angeles, they would then go to homeless areas, whether those be shelters or underneath bridges. I'm not sure how they were planning to do that, and hand out vouchers. the person experiencing homelessness would then take that voucher and go to any hotel that they wanted and use that voucher for a night's stay. And so it would have just been a ridiculous problem. Just think about this as well. What happens in day 2? The voucher is good for one night. What happens on the second night? You think the homeless person's going to leave that nice hotel room they're in? And then how do you enforce that? Well, then you're going to have to call law enforcement. You think LA law enforcement doesn't have anything better to do than to go over to hotels and take homeless people out of the hotel because their voucher expired? I mean, it was just silly on its face. And the fact that anyone gave this any serious consideration tells us how bad we are with the electorate in today, because you can come up with the most ridiculous idea and somehow people glom onto that because there's some sort of visceral emotional reaction to wanting to solve the homeless problem, which we all do. But that doesn't mean that every solution is a good solution.
You wrote that into a script, and the producer would throw it in the garbage. It's like that doesn't make any sense. No one would ever do that. And you don't solve any problems, but you create 600,000 more problems. So you don't even create the problem. You don't even fix the problem you're trying to fix. You don't fix it. You create more. And when I first heard of it, I actually was losing sleep over it. I was like, this can't happen. Like this, then it's going to come to New York. It's going to come to another place. And then I said to myself, I knew you guys were all over it. I was like, this can't happen. And I'm glad it's not even on the ballot, to even the ridiculousness of voting for it.
Yeah, I think what this really is the crux of is that jurisdictions feel they can continue to rely on the hotel business to solve problems, whether it's something as crazy like this or continuing to increase occupancy taxes and make it more difficult for these businesses to succeed. And I think, Chip, that this still comes down to, even after all the great work you do, because congressional representatives keep flipping over, I don't think people genuinely understand how hotels are really impacting the American economy and how they are important for the backbone of jobs and taxes.
Yeah, 1 out of every 25 jobs in America is somehow tied to a hotel, whether that be directly working at the hotel, working off property, or working for a company that provides goods and services to that hotel. And so we have an enormous fiscal impact in every single community in America, and that should be noted. And you just have to look, the reality is, for elected officials, just use some common sense. Just like think about the things that you're doing in a way that makes sense in application, not just makes sense for the news headline you want to get, not just in some way pacify the crazy group that's asking you to do something, but think about, does this actually work? I'll give you another example. We're dealing with this right now. There's a ton of cities across the U.S. that are considering all sorts of penalties for carbon emissions of buildings, right? Commercial buildings. I think we all want to solve the carbon emission problem. But when you apply a penalty to someone who cannot control the solution or cannot control the activity that you're penalizing, you've set up a scenario that just doesn't work. For example, let's say the both of you are in a car right now, and let's say Glenn's driving, and you're going 100 miles an hour down 95, and Glenn gets pulled over, and the officer walks up and hands Anthony the ticket and say, Anthony, I'm going to give you the ticket because Glenn was driving the car. That would be
like
silly. Right? Well, when in the hotel industry, we can't control what temperature the guest sets the room on. We can't control how much water they use. These are not things that are in our control, and to then penalize us for the activities of somebody else makes no sense whatsoever. Now, can we all take actions to make more water efficient utilities, make better systems for energy using, not having food waste? We can do all that. We at AHLA support that. We have guides for that. But you can't control the activities of the guest down to the micro level.
No, in fact, I would argue that it's up to those jurisdictions to provide some carrots to make the change, so people will be prompted to make that change, as opposed to saying you have to or else. That's just strong arm tactics. Anthony, sorry.
Go off on a tangent, but let's go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
How the hell did we get here? How did we get to, there's always been ridiculous legislation, right? This is like the Hall of Fame of ridiculous legislation. How did we? And I always say, we're the youngest, we have the oldest constitution in the youngest country. So we don't have a lot of years, right? We only have a couple hundred years. But in our history, I don't remember things like this ever happening. That it's like somebody that went in to make these bills that have no sense of what's going on either side. They're doing it just like you said for shock value and for headlines. How the heck did we get here? Because there's probably 12 more coming down the path this week.
Yeah, look, there's a lot to this, and I know that this is a hospitality-related show, so I won't spend too much time on it. But you have to ask yourself when you're looking at who you're voting for. First of all, you can't believe 90% of the things that are printed. Or, I mean, every campaign is now nothing but attacks. You hear very little on the actual issues that impact people. And what that means is the best and brightest in our community are not going to run for public office. When we were kids, you guys recall, it was the local doctor, it was the local lawyer, it was the local CPA who said, I want to give back to my community and provide some public service after I've been successful. These are thoughtful, well-reasoned people who don't have an axe to grind. They instead just want to help their community. Those people are gone. And the reason they're gone is because they're not going to put themselves in the way of this shotgun approach of politics now, in which everything is the most ridiculous attack. But the problem is that we've been emotionally driven into two camps. And when I say that, it is a camp that says anything and everything that Donald Trump says is wrong, and I hate him, and anybody that's near him, I hate. Or the other side, anything and everything that Joe Biden says is wrong, and I hate him, and I'm going to vote. And we can't allow ourselves to do that. But that is exactly the camps we've been driven into. And it's not a logical process. Like, I could probably name for you 5 great things that Joe Biden has done as president. Probably name you 5 great things that Donald Trump did as president. But the other sides will never acknowledge that because of a visceral hatred for the person. And we see that play out all the way through the political spectrum, where the average good person is never going to subject themselves to that. And when we don't have good people in political life, I mean, think about the wisdom of our forefathers, what they represented. Point to me anyone in America today that applies that same sort of wisdom. I mean, these were the true leaders that truly thought about stuff. What were the implications of policy? It just doesn't exist anymore.
Well, they didn't have TikTok, so they weren't distracted as much.
And what's fascinating is most of us fall in the middle, right? Most of us want affordable healthcare. We want affordable housing. We want everybody to be taken care of. We want competition. We want people to basically make as much money as they can make, as long as they're doing it in a moral way. But we want to take care of people. So we all fall in the middle. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us. And if we just have a conversation, even if you're polar opposite of my opinion, we probably can get to the middle with a conversation. But everybody, listen, how many times have you clicked on something and the headline is one thing and you click on it, it's like, that has nothing to do with the headline.
Yeah, right? 90% of the time.
Well, look, another perfect example, it's one that impacts our industry, immigration reform, okay? 95% of reasonable people, which I think is about 80% of the country, if you went to them and said, look, we have to be able to have enough people coming into the country who want to experience the American dream, who can fuel our economy, because we need a growing economy, especially in a world where we have this much debt. We've got to grow our way out of it. And the only way to do that is to combine productivity and labor. And if you don't have labor, I don't care how much productivity increase you have, it's going to be very difficult to grow that economy. So you have to have more people coming in, especially when just the last jobs report showed us at about 2.6 million jobs difference between the number of openings and the number of people who are unemployed. So most people would say, yes, we have to have that. And we ought to know who is coming in. Like, we got to have a secure border. Almost everybody you talk to, left and right, would say, yes, that is a reasonable policy. And yet here we are 20-something years later, 25, almost 30 years later, since the last time we passed major reform, and we still don't have that. And it's just mind-boggling that we have allowed the crazies to dictate something as important as immigration policy into a country that was built on the idea of immigration. It's just ridiculous.
And we're dealing with that in a lot of the big cities. We're dealing with it in New York. And in my community, they built an area in a state park, and it's probably 10 minutes from our home. And I heard that, hey, you can drop off jackets and you can drop off supplies to support them. And we were so excited. We were like, yes, okay, we'll bring everything. We'll support them, whatever we can do. And I spent 6 months in Honduras, so I know how things get down there. So I was all excited. But then what happens is they're not giving them the resources they need and controlling them the way that it protects everyone. So now they're knocking on doors.
Oh, God.
Community asking for supplies. Well, that's not good, because the people that were against immigration reform just double down, and people like me to support it, but have to do it in a smart way. And if we can't accept them, we shouldn't accept them. But if they do accept them, we should be able to control it. So I can't agree with you more. I didn't mean to go off on this tangent, but I think it's important simply because the asinine legislation that's getting put into place, without people like you, without your organizations, some of this stuff can slip through.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to continue to highlight the ridiculousness of many of these items. But it really all stems back to that core principle of how do we elect good, reasonable people, and where do we find those people in a contentious environment where the moment you put your name on the ballot, they're going to say 100 things about you, and 95 of them are going to be false.
Yeah. Well, in my case, 99 would probably be.
What was the guy from New York, from Long Island, that just got thrown out of Congress?
Oh, Santos.
George Santos. Yeah.
100% of the things were.
100%.
Although I heard he's a great volleyball player. All right. So I don't know whether or not to segue into more on labor or that ridiculousness. I think I'm going to settle on the ridiculousness. The Labor Department is now, exerting more regulations by apparently changing the way workers are classified as independent contractors or employees. I know California had some impact with this, and on the journalism side, it seemed to be a real mess. This seems to be they're going to be stepping in it and creating a lot of unanticipated issues. Maybe I'm wrong. How do you see it, sir?
Look, this just goes back to a core principle of what you think America should be about. And this comes down to control. So every state, certainly the federal government, has all sorts of laws as they pertain to employees. What we've seen the American people shift towards, it's a global shift, not just the American people, is a gig economy, because people want to control their own destiny, and they're willing to give up some of the protections that you might receive as an employee for that freedom. That's the core of being America. I mean, yeah, we were all protected when we were back in the motherland in England, but we came to the United States because we wanted to live free. That's what the gig economy represents. By their own actions, millions of people have said, look, I want to be an independent contractor. I want to work when I want to work. I don't want to be tied to a single company or a single schedule or any of this. And if someone down the street offers me a better deal doing the same thing, I'm going to go do that. That's where the American people are going. This ruling that just came out yesterday, or this proposed rule, is going the opposite direction. So right now, under current law, that's what's called a two-prong test. So you have to meet two thresholds to be classified as an independent contractor, 1099. This proposal takes that from 2 to 6, it triples it. And the idea is to make sure that people are not independent contractors, so that they are actually employees, so that they can be controlled by law. That is just not what the American people want. Again, it is a solution searching for a problem. We are going to try to find a way to stop this. If it takes legal action, we're going to take that legal action, among with many others, I can assure you of that. But then this is just another example of the Labor Department wanting to push everyone away from what the American people actually want.
Right. And I think that we've got to keep our eyes really on this particular issue. I mean, I wouldn't have the career I have today if I wasn't able to be a contractor by contractor definitions that we've all kind of agreed upon over the last number of generations, right? That's how I started. And everybody here on No Vacancy are all contractors, because I'm not going to tell somebody that they have to work from X hour to X hour. Do your job whenever, just get it done. Period. The end. Look,
it's real simple. I mean, if someone says, or especially early in your career, Glenn, that, all right, I want to pay Glenn to do a certain job,
right?
And you want to do it, and the company is willing to pay you for that. That's an easy transaction. If they don't like the job you're doing,
right,
you're gone. If you're doing a great job, they're going to pay you more, and it's simple for them, it's simple for you. If now they say, well, I've got to hire Glenn and bring him on, go through all this, they're a lot less likely to actually do that. So now you lose and they lose. It is a lose-lose proposition.
Right. Also, who's the government to control my income over there? What if I want to work 24 hours a day and really maximize my opportunity and do a lot of contract work, right? Well, now you're telling me I have to work for one company pretty much and, listen to them. I don't work well in those circumstances.
The government needs to take care of you though, Glenn, because you can't be
I was about to say, I'm going to rely on LA to put me up in swanky hotels every night at 2:00 in the afternoon.
It's interesting. Growing up in this industry, if you were a consultant, it means you got fired, right? And you're looking for a job.
Yeah.
Now, because of technology, if you're a consultant and you're in the gig economy, like, where we are, it means because you want to be, not because you have to be. And whereas before you didn't have the technology, like right now, I got my computer, I'm in a hotel room, and we can have this radio show, TV show, whatever you want to call it, because of technology. So things have changed, not only for the 25-year-olds, but for the 55-year-olds. And some people, like Glenn said, I played nice in the sandbox when I liked the company.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn doesn't play nice in the sandbox. But people who are very talented
Yeah.
and very good at what they do, but you don't want them around all the time. You want them to come in, you want them to do their job, and you want them to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we definitely talked about that issue enough. Chip, another victory that I think our incredible industry has had was when New York City decided to change the Airbnb rules and kind of finally put some regulations behind it. I hear that's actually bearing some fruit.
83% reduction in the Airbnb revenue for New York City. Yeah, 83%. What does that mean? Well, that means a lot of things. It means affordable housing, which is a huge problem across this country. I mean, I just checked these numbers yesterday. There's almost 2 million properties that are actively lit homes that are actively listed right now on these platforms. And what does that mean? That means 2 million homes that were built to be residential for residents that are now commercial operations. When you take 2 million homes out of the national home stock, what do you think? I mean, you've just reduced supply. So even if demand stays steady, we know laws of supply and demand that price goes up, and now you make it unaffordable. So in a place like New York City, very difficult for firemen, for any type of first responder, policemen, teachers, to even live in a reasonable place because you've driven the price. Government has driven the prices through the roof, or in this case, they've allowed someone to come in and take a residential property and shift it over to commercial. So the regulations went in place, and the reason they're working in New York where they haven't worked in other places is because New York is going after the platform. That has always been the key to this type of enforcement.
Right.
What the platforms hide behind is the fact that there's this thing called CDA 230, and it was put in way back in the day to allow the internet to grow. And the basic principle was, if I have a platform and someone comes on that platform, and you remember the days, guys, when it was like a chat room, right?
Yeah.
You can't hold the platform responsible for someone who posts something that is stupid or wrong or illegal, right? But what you should be able to hold the platform accountable for is when they conduct the actual transaction that is illegal. And so what we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years, particularly with Airbnb, is a local community will come in and say, look, you're not allowed to have these short-term rentals in these residential areas. They weren't built for that. They can't handle that. And so therefore, this is an illegal short-term rental. The problem is that you couldn't penalize the platform. You had to go after the owner. Well, that type of enforcement was almost impossible.
Right.
What New York City has done differently is saying, no, you, the platform, cannot be conducting a transaction that we have deemed illegal. I can't go online and sell and have a platform that sells illegal narcotics and just hide behind it, right?
Right.
They should be allowed to sell illegal units and just hide behind it. So New York's going after the platform. It's working. It's making a difference. And I expect we'll see that in a lot of other cities.
I think that is such a clever solution because it provides, it helps you attain the goal without having to worry about what that law is that's currently in place.
And again, common sense. You're going to have that legislation. You better do it in the right place so you can hold, I want $1 to kick, right? I can't kick $1,000. My general used to say that to me. I just want $1 to kick. And if they're going after 1 million people, it doesn't make any sense. So again, good job. And, I look forward to seeing the revenue and occupancies in New York City grow because we know the expenses are growing everywhere, especially in New York City.
Well, we'll see what happens in New York City, and we'll have to have a more detailed conversation on this as well because so much supply has been taken out by those housing the migrants, plus the Airbnb issue. It's going to make for an interesting dynamic going forward. Maybe we can talk to Jan about that tomorrow. Was that?
Chip, can you work on congestion pricing, please?
Oh, yeah. So, Chip, this is interesting. I know it's a joke, but producer Dave's general manager of a hotel in New York City, and he has some employees that drive in. And this is all of a sudden starting to become a real concern, particularly since overall, we're starting to finally see, as your numbers are saying, slowly improving job market for hotels. So how do you see New York and then go into the general stuff?
You guys need to elect better people. I mean, that's all I can say.
Hey, I'm not a New York City resident, so
No.
I voted for Michael Bloomberg nicely the first couple times, and then I was out of the city.
But congestion pricing is, again, another crazy idea that is a massive tax on people who go to work every day, and when they go to work, they're not working remotely, they're actually going to the physical location. And unfortunately, those are typically the type of people that can least afford this tax.
Right.
And so it's just it's a terrible, terrible idea. And I hear some of the numbers about what it costs to get into the city now. It's mind-boggling. Like most of America would not put up with that.
Right.
I go into the city for meetings all the time, right? So last week or a couple weeks ago, I was in the city. So the tolls are $13. The gas was probably $8 from my house. Okay. So what are we at? $21. Then parking was $60. Okay. So I'm at $81. And then congestion pricing would add another $20. So I'm at $100 to go into the city with my car.
Yeah.
Because to go in by train from where I live is 2 hours on a train.
That's definitely going to help all of the businesses there make money, right? Because
$20 to drive into New York City,
dude. I'm telling you, I don't want to do live shows from New York City anymore because every time I go in, I just feel like I'm going to be getting hit on the head with that. It just doesn't make any sense. But Chip, outside New York City,
it's why people move to Florida. They don't have to put up with this nonsense.
Yeah. Right. But everyone should know Dr. Producer Suzanne, who lives in Florida, is laughing behind stage.
I just hope that they're putting in really good infrastructure because I can't imagine with all the people that moved down there that eventually the infrastructure is going to catch up with them. So listen, I may be there in a couple of years, so make sure it goes all in before I get there. Okay.
Yeah, we got to find some new town that's not up and coming yet. Maybe we could create the Villages 2 or something like that. But how are you seeing labor? Because a lot of the folks that are coming on this show saying it is easing. People are coming back to the hotel business, but not at the rate that they'd like to see.
Yeah, two things at play. One, people are coming back, not back to where we were. We're still not back to 2019 numbers for total employment. But as Anthony can tell you, because he's the type of guy that helps with stuff like this, we're just better hoteliers. Because of the pandemic, people know how to do more with less. I mean, it is those stressful times in life where you find the things that are most important and you make sure you do those well. And hoteliers have figured that out. How do we take care of guests, realizing we have fewer human resources to do that and relying more on technology? And it's working.
I'm working with a company here in New England, and I can't tell you, I have never seen a leadership group, it's Cohen Hotels out here in New England, more involved with their employees, more rolling up their sleeves, general managers if they have to cover a shift because somebody needs a day off and needs childcare, whatever. It is amazing. I was just talking to a manager that I'm working with, and she just literally told me a story that put tears in my eyes of just how she handled the situation with her team today because of the storm. And she was there. She said she can't make beds for her life, but she was there helping them. She bought everybody lunch. She was involved. And if you don't love, I always say, you don't have to like people, but you have to like making people happy. So if you're a person that likes to make people happy, whether it be an employee or a guest, this is your role. And, Chip, we've had these conversations and we're working on a program together to get people more interested in this industry. And not only that it's a great industry and you can travel anywhere in the world and be in this industry and you don't have to be in just one job for too long. Has there ever been a time, Chip, and Glenn, you can talk to this too, because you see it, you know people that were bellmen that now are CEOs of brands, right?
All the time.
25 years. I've seen people that were bellmen that are general managers in 3 years now. Like, has there ever been a time that's been better to be in this industry?
Not for advancement and compensation, that's for sure. I was at a hotel a few months back in Phoenix, and the young man, he was so proud. I was so happy for him. Had just been appointed general manager, and this is a convention hotel in Phoenix. He was still in his 20s. He had started the hotel as a 17-year-old parking cars.
Wow!
And now he's I think it was like a 300-room hotel in downtown Phoenix, and he's the GM, and that's a very high-paying job. And you just got to love stories like that, and they happen all over the industry. And because so many people left between 2020 and 2022, there's just enormous gaps that are still being filled.
There was a job on LinkedIn. I think it was at one of the 5-star resorts out in Vegas for a butler. I swear to God, I was so tempted to just a butler, where people think is a butler is like, butler on Batman. No,
Right.
that's not the butler. Butler is you're dealing with VIPs and you make more money than probably every person in that building. Maybe the president of the company makes more than you, but you're making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in certain areas of the industry. So again, being a banquet captain in New York City, I have proof that you make more money than general manager sometimes. So you don't when people think of the hotel business, I don't want to work weekends, I don't want to work holidays, and I don't want to make a little bit of money. Well, you don't have to do any of that if you are good at your job and you get yourself into the right position. So big advocate. This is the only industry I would push everybody into right now. If you want freedom, flexibility, you want the gig economy, you can do that here.
Yeah, and make a lot of money.
And that's the thing. Like, people say there's no money in the hotel business. I go to the convention, I go to a party, I can't reach my hand out without hitting a millionaire in the head.
That's
try not to hit too many people in the head, but
no. But that's absolutely true.
Thanks,
So,
that's a good joke. I get it.
all right, so there's a lot of talk about this digital nomad thing, and we're all looking to hire people. What about, besides task force, what about advertising for hospitality nomads, people that could go out there and work in different cities at different hotels throughout their career? Maybe we get the messaging out more on that.
I mean, it's happening organically. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think people who like to travel are attracted to this industry, because they know, to Anthony's point, good paying job, but the ability to go places they otherwise might not be able to go to. And so we see that everywhere. And it's intuitive to people that, hey, I could, if I'm serving at a hotel in Paris, I can serve at a hotel in New York City just as easy.
Yeah. In the brands, I have a friend, and a friend of our show, that was a leader of one of their major brands and decided to retire. And now she's basically consultant for this brand. And when they need a hotel to open, or a general manager leaves, and she needs to babysit for a couple of months, she goes. So far she's been.
She just got a new assignment. I just saw on LinkedIn.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And she's loving life. Yeah. And she's loving life. So that's the gig economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we wrap up today, obviously you can't just draw it in one easy picture because there's so many different areas of hospitality, but what are your expectations for 2024?
I think we've hit the top and we've plateaued on leisure travel, which is fine, but fine. We always wanted to grow, but it's pretty good right now. Small group business is back to where it was. It's been back for quite some time. And then the large group business will come back this year to where it was in 2019. So I'm thinking that 2024 looks really good. If you're comparing it to 2019, RevPAR is going to be up considerably. Now, is it above inflation? That's a different story, and also depends on where you are, because wage inflation has hit different communities in different ways. But for hoteliers who say, as they should, how much money am I making on this investment? 2024 should be a pretty good year.
So in that spirit, it looks like we're going to see the Fed knock down those interest rates a number of times throughout the year. So that's going to be a pretty exciting story, I think, to see as it kind of pushes more hotel development that's out there.
Well, not only development, transactions. I mean, the reality is that you should always remove hurdles from real estate transactions, and because it only prohibits the improvement of the piece of property, no matter if it's a piece of vacant land or a hotel. And so when you place hurdles in front of that, and Anthony has lived this life, and it makes it more difficult for a new investor to buy that hotel, then the improvements that would go along with that new investment are just not going to happen. And so I've always been an advocate for getting rid of hurdles, oftentimes hurdles that don't make any sense, for reducing real estate transactions. We need more real estate transactions, not less.
I've had this argument my entire career with people. It's like, yes, some rich people get some benefits to building hotels or building buildings or building businesses. And guess what? We get to work in them, and we get to feed our family, and we get to play. So it is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard in my life, when we want money to work. And when money works for the people that have it, it works for all of us. And are there people that take advantage of that? Of course. But Look, listen, New York City, if you're working in a hotel, you're making a nice living. If you're a housekeeper or if you're working the front desk or you're making a nice living. So we need, like you said, we need these impediments to go away so we can get real estate transactions going. And the more hurdles, the more people sit on the sidelines. And then more people go on social services. And the person who's been on social services when he was growing up, it's not a fun place to be.
Yep. Chip, any final thoughts?
I can think of no better place to start my new year. And I know today's the last day of you acknowledging the new year, Glenn. But
I went into July last year. It started to get a little weird and awkward for everyone. So I had to make it.
This has been my first, second podcast of the year, but the first one is not nearly what you guys are. So my favorite.
I talk about it all the time. You used to come from the White House right to our podcast before you went to all the big programs. And I must have told that story 100 times. And I could shed a tear over because it helped our platform. It helped our reputation, but it also helped the industry of that. We're going from Washington right to what's happening. And you get it here first. So we will always be thankful for that. And I'll be remiss if I didn't say you did it again by doubling down and helping me and the industry by funding the production of Hotel All-Stars, which is basically ready to be distributed. And you'll be seeing it a lot on social media. You'll be seeing it a lot. You'll have a lot of access to it because you guys funded it. When you have a funded show by different industries, it has to go to a distribution network like Netflix or Discovery. Well, we have the opportunity because of you and your decisions to put it on social media that you'll be seeing a show called Hotel All-Star all over social media platforms very soon. So please like it, please watch it, and please send it to people because the more people watch it, the more we can have, and the more we can show how fun this industry is and how great this industry is. But again, without you, it doesn't happen. Without your team, it doesn't. And by the way, you have the biggest rock star team in the history of rock stars.
I do have a great team, and they make me look a lot better than I should. But speaking of that, I don't know, is there an award for best reality TV show host? Because if there
should be.
Anthony Melchiorri is the guy.
Hey, listen, I've seen it. The freaking show looks amazing. Well, it is amazing.
I can't wait. I was up for an Emmy that I didn't win, so there's a gentleman that won it that deserved it. I don't even think I made it to the final ballot. But listen, I'll give an example. I'm gonna do that. The young lady, I didn't get her name, that was helping before, was in the green room, that was helping before you were on. I'm all of a sudden getting ordered around my room to tell me to fix the lighting and to fix my TV. And I think it's Suzanne, the producer. So I'm running around fixing everything, and I sit down, and it's a young lady I never saw before. Yes!
We're good.
You have rock stars, my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love
good to see you.
Hey, it was good seeing you too. Thanks so much for being here, Chip. And the good news is we're talking to their teams, trying to get him scheduled on a regular basis for this year. So that'll be a whole lot of fun. And one thing that would be fun for me and Anthony is if you guys would go ahead and download our podcast wherever you get your shows. And if you're listening to us right now, why not watch us? Find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, novacancynews.com, and of course on YouTube. Any final thoughts before we get out here today?
I am making my signs that say Chip Rogers for President of the United States. Are you making them too?
I like him too much to see him in that situation.
Campaign, literally, if he called me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about running for president. Will you come and help me, dude?" I'd be on the plane so fast your head would spin.
Well, he's got it, all the factors you need in order to do that job. That's for sure. But I hate to see him get all that vitriol sent his way.
Yes, it's very difficult, but dealing in our industry and the capacity he is, he gets it anyway.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's really good, and he's used to it, so it won't really affect him any. All right. Tomorrow, Jan Freitag of CoStar STR with all the numbers you need to know to be more successful. And then we got a full boat of shows next week, even though I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be in a mystery location next week, which will be revealed at some point. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where I'll be either, but I'll be somewhere.
All right, everybody. Remember, remember you got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
Now I click the button and then I click